Hey guys, this is Alachia, and this is my spoiler chat discussion for Saltburn. Whoa, my goodness. I hope you guys had a chance to go see this only if you're sick and twisty. If you're normie, probably not the movie for you. And I will go into the reasons why in this video. Okay, so to recap, Saltburn is a story about a young Oxford student named Oliver Quick who befriends an aristocrat named Felix, who then takes him to his estate, Saltburn. And then he is exposed to this completely opulent lifestyle and meets his family, Felix's family, and is basically entranced by this world. Oliver is obviously very transfixed on Felix, becomes incredibly obsessed with him, and then subsequently obsessed with his family and his entire life. And the question that lingers throughout the story of the movie as it goes on is, will Felix return that love? And this is what I think Emerald Fennell does so amazing in this film, is she subverts the mythical straight boy unicorn trope. And if you don't know what the mythical straight boy unicorn trope is, it is this idea that there's a connection between a straight guy and a gay guy that is just so overwhelmingly powerful, and their connection is just so vibrant and magical that the sexual orientation of the straight guy is just overwhelmed by this connection, and he becomes gay for this gay guy because the connection is just that overwhelming. and you know, there are movies that kind of tap into that idea. Brideshead Revisited is one of them, like I mentioned in my review, and then Call Me by Your Name is another one that they all kind of explore this idea of this beautiful love story that unfolds where the intimacy between two people is just, you know, so visceral and just too magical that that other person can't stay straight. And Emerald Fennell, she plays with this so well in this film, where, you know, and even in the trailers, you can see it looks like this is where the story's going. But she takes that obsession and she makes it so that you are following this Barry Keoghan's Oliver Quick, and you're just thinking, this poor guy. Oh man, he is so going to be disappointed. He has no chance in hell. He's just too obsessed, and he doesn't see this for what it really is. And he thinks that Felix is going to just turn around and see him for who he is, and he's going to shine through, and he's going to make Felix love him, and it's going to work. It's going to work. And so you really believe that Oliver is trying his best throughout this entire time to get so integrated into Felix's life that Felix has no choice but to go gay for him. And what it turns out is, of course, the big freaking reveal is that Oliver has been planning this all along, and that he's using all of them in order to gain their trust, weasel his way into their life, and off them one by one until he's the last man standing. By the third act of the film, he turns into a full-blown serial killer. Like, bam, like just like that. Barry Keoghan goes from his Oliver Quick persona, which is very much like his Dominic persona in Banshees of Inisherin, where, you know, he's just this hapless, you know, very meek, small, pathetic guy who just doesn't know his place in the world, to holy crap, full-on, confident, Ted Bundy-ish type character. And he is so cold and calculating in what he's doing to them, which I feel is so well done, because it's almost, the murders are almost analogous to the way that he sees how the Canton family has treated other people who are not in their class, right? He dehumanizes them. He kills them in such a dehumanizing way that is completely mirrors the way in which these people have constantly dehumanized anybody else around them who is not part of their class structure, who's not part of their wealth group. And I thought that was just so interesting to have that kind of mirror of the two, where you're not like, oh, it's not about glorifying murder, but it's about showcasing how that dehumanization of other people is almost analogous to cold calculating murder. It feels that bitter. It feels that unjust, right? And I thought that it was so brilliant of Emerald Fennell to do that. Okay, so in addition to all of that, which I think that I think is hard for people to accept, because they were going into this film hoping for that mythical straight boy unicorn to appear, and it never does. He never does. And that Felix completely rejects Oliver, and that, it never happens. And I think a lot of people were like, oh man, that's so disappointing. But I just really loved it because I just recently seen The Talented Mr. Ripley. I'd never seen it previous, and I put it on, and I just thought, this is interesting. Let's see what this is about. And it is about a guy who is very much like the same thing, not a very rich person, who just is tasked with going to find this very wealthy young man, who he then becomes infatuated and obsessed with, and wants to be integrated into that guy's world, played by Jude Law. Talented Ripley was played by Matt Damon, and he gets integrated in the world, loves it, and then he just doesn't want to leave it. And he does everything he can to try to stay in that world, which, it's becomes very chaotic as well. But the issue that I had with The Talented Mr. Ripley is he's called The Talented Mr. Ripley, and he's supposed to be this person who can manipulate his way into any situation, that he can become more like a chameleon and blend in and just pass in a world he doesn't belong in a class structure he's not supposed to be in. But the way that the character ended up coming out was so disappointing, because he was so not good. He was so not talented. He was messy. He was just so messy. And I ended up really disliking the film because it did kind of show just the kind of chaos of someone going like, I don't want to leave this world. I'm not going to go. I'm not leaving Disney World, And I just really wanted Ripley to be very calculating and to be that person who could say, hey, I can completely manipulate all these people and they'll never know. But that's just not the way it was. It turned into more of a chaotic event when he's being forced out of this world he wants to stay in. And this was what I wanted from The Talented Mr. Ripley, was this film. And then it's also kind of a blend of flesh. It's a film that grossed a lot of people out a few years ago, about a woman who discovered her love of eating flesh. And I'm not saying there's no cannibalism in here per se, but it's that it does introduce that horrifying aspect of human behavior. It's actually not human behavior, absurd human behavior and fetishes, etc., that makes the film almost unwatchable to a lot of people. So, for example, and these are 3 examples as to why I particularly enjoyed going to see this in the theater. Actually, okay, side story, real quick. I wanted to go see this at one of the early screenings that were available to get from Alamo Drafthouse, and it was kind of in town, and I live kind of north of town now, and the only seats that were available to buy, because it was packed, completely sold out, this is crazy, were these seats in the back, but they were sofa seats. I guess Alamo Drafthouse does these sofa seats now. And the only way you could buy the sofa seat was to buy the whole sofa. So you couldn't just buy one seat in the sofa and someone else buys another, because I guess maybe that's just really awkward. I get it. And so I was like, fuck it, I'm buying it. I want to go see this film. I want to review it. And afterwards I said to my husband, I was like, I got a sofa seat, weirdly enough. So if you want to come see Saltburn, I have an extra ticket. And he surprisingly was like, hey, since you're going to go into town, I'd like to come with you. What the hell? I'll check it out. And I was so glad he came with me, because after the movie was over, I was like, I don't know how I would have tried to explain this movie to you. But he got to see it for himself, and we had a blast. The girls next to us were also sharing a couch, and they were having like kind of a girls' night, and they were drinking cocktails and eating and just having a blast. And during these 3 scenes that I'm about to tell you, they were going wild. The people in the front, a couple of people in the front of us, were just groaning so loudly, and everyone was freaking out in the theater, and it was just amazing. So the scene is, Oliver is completely obsessed with Felix and very obsessed with him sexually. So when Felix is taking a bath, and they're sharing a bathroom, he hears, moaning sounds, and Felix is, pleasuring himself in the bathtub, and he finishes, and then he allows Oliver back into the bathroom after he's done, but the tub is draining. And all the while, Oliver is looking at that tub and eyeing that tub like it is freaking ice cream. And you could the build up to this scene is just so slow, and yet you know where it's going, but you don't want it to go there, but you know it's going to go there, but you don't know how far it's going to go. And so as Felix leaves the bathroom and says goodnight, Oliver goes into the tub just as the last of the cum soup is circling the drain of the tub, and he climbs in, and this is just beautifully shot too, climbs in and just goes in for it, and he's slurping up this soup as it's circling the drain, and the crowd in the theater was so they couldn't believe it. Everyone was like, oh God, no, oh please no. And the beauty of that scene is it doesn't stop there. He then goes the extra mile of, as it's going all into the drain, his tongue is going into the drain, and it's just like he's making love to the drain with his tongue, and I could hardly look. It was just, for me, it wasn't the weird kind of fetishized version of someone slurping someone's, cum soup. It was just the whole unhygienic portion of it where I was having an adverse reaction. And I had the same adverse reaction in flesh when the 2 people who are wearing nothing but, like, they have paint all over their faces and they're just tonguing each other. I'm like, oh, that paint is going in your mouth, and it's, that's just disgusting. And now I'm like thinking, this guy's tongue is inside this disgusting drain and it's so nasty. But then, the moment of him trying to suck that any bit he can of Felix and consume it, is the first reveal that he's trying to subsume Felix's life, right? He is eating him, basically. It's, that whole idea of eat the rich, literally eat the rich. Okay, and then the second one is he's trying to get into this family and integrate himself into this family. So he's trying to seduce Felix's sister Venetia. And he and Venetia have been having this flirtatious kind of moment outside of his window, down from his bedroom, night after night. And it gets to the point where he goes down. He literally goes down. He goes down to meet her, and she says to him, she's in this flowing white nightgown, and she says, "This is not a good time, Oliver. It's, her time of the month." Does not stop him. He doesn't care. So at first you think, okay, well, it's just going to be this bloody sexual encounter where you think he's just going to finger paint her a bit and, feed her a little bit of her own blood, whatever. But no, it's full on period Slurpee. And it's like the man becomes a human Tampax, and he goes down there, and it is just full on eating of the blood. And that's where I actually thought that this was going to go into some weird vampire direction, but it didn't. He's just someone who has no qualms with bodily fluids. But that wasn't as bad. The third scene that I think is worth seeing this in the theaters with other people to see their reaction is he poisons Felix, and Felix dies, and they go to bury Felix, and he's clearly, upset because he had been obsessed with Felix and had hoped that Felix would have come around at some point and just return the affection and return the love and the devotion, etc. But ultimately, he ends up having to kill Felix, and because Felix is going to expose him for being a liar and a manipulator. The grave scene. So, freshly buried body. Felix is there, under the ground, and Oliver is devastated. He had, this is his love. He just wants to be a part of him. He doesn't want to let go of him. And so he is on the grave, and he's hugging the grave, and he's just doesn't want to part with him, and is so traumatized. And it is a profile shot. This is what's so beautiful about it. That's another thing that's beautiful about all these. It's not just gross, disturbing shots. They're filmed, and it becomes gross, disgusting art. And the side shot is him just on the grave, profile. And he arises from the grave, and he takes his shirt off, and so that he can be even closer to Felix, right, on the dirt. And he's crying, and it's very emotional. And then he kind of arises again and unbuckles his pants, and out comes, and he has kind of an erotic scene with the grave, and he is literally grave fucking. the amount of no's, no's coming out of the audience's mouth at this point was just priceless. People were like, no. Because... And it's still emotional. It's just absurd. It's absolutely absurd. But you buy it. The way it's filmed, the way it's shot, the way how it's still so emotionally and personal to Oliver, you buy it. And it's just so surreal and disturbing in all of the best ways. So those are the three scenes that I think are worth going to the theater to actually see the audience's reaction for, because priceless. That's a joy I'll always treasure, that I got to experience that with other people, especially the girls who are having a girls' night. Perfection. It was perfect. They were hilarious. And then the what is so alluring about this film is, just besides all of the absolute absurdities and the completely erotic and fetishized aspects of the film, there's a lot of it that borders kind of on fantasy. It's so much opulence that it borders on fantasy. And it's so much excess that it's so absurd. And The White Lotus, I don't know if you've seen the TV show on HBO Max, or is it called Max now, about a fictional White Lotus resort and the relationship between the guests at the resort and the employees at the resort. And there's always usually this psychological dysfunction going on with the guests that has to get resolved. But ultimately, the true horror of the show, or the disturbing aspects of the show, is the dynamic between the class structures of the guests and the employees. And it's an anthology type series. Every season ends with nothing really changing. And that's the true kind of horrific aspect of witnessing and seeing that nothing in the show upends the structure and everyone else just kind of goes along with their life and there's nothing that can be done. And what Emerald Fennell's doing with Saltburn is taking that ending and saying, well, actually, I am going to upend the structure. And she has Oliver upend the structure. And it's kind of very, very satisfying to see because, again, his systematic murder of all of these family members and manipulating them into relinquishing their wealth to him eventually is, like I said, analogous with the way in which they have spent their entire lives dehumanizing everyone else around them. And he does the same thing to them. So it's kind of almost like a sweet justice. And then the absolute cherry on top of the sundae is the ending, where he has completed his goal and now he has emerged, fully reborn, the Phoenix reborn. And he is in this castle, this estate, Saltburn, alone, and he has won, and he is naked, reborn naked into this beautiful world in which he has subsumed. And he just goes throughout the entire Saltburn estate, strutting around naked like a peacock. And this scene is just so great. I thought when I first saw him starting to go through and the scene was unfolding as he revels in his, success of upending the social structure, I thought, okay, well, there's Barry Keoghan's ass and, there's going to be a little bit of side dick. No. Full on twirling, shimmy shaking to this incredible ending song. And it's nothing, there's just everything's just out there, literally. And it is just so unapologetic that's what, to me, just sealed the deal for this film being an absolute A+ for me, or I'm just like, Emerald Fennell did not shy away from anything. She went there. Whether or not you like where she went, I don't care. She's one of the few who just went there, went for it, no apologies, take it or leave it, fuck you, dicks out, cum soup, blood sundae, whatever, grave fucking. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. It's amazing. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. But yeah, you do have to be a little sick and twisty to like it, because this is not in any way a normal type film. And I do hope that people don't go in too much expecting the, mythical straight guy unicorn and hoping that it's going to be a Call Me by Your Name or whatever, but because it's not. It's basically White Lotus, but with a more satisfying ending. All right, guys, Thanks so much for watching, and if you like what you're seeing, please consider subscribing. It really helps, especially with videos like this, which cannot really be monetized because Cum Soup is not monetizable. All right, guys, if you like to watch more, you can click right here or right here. Until next time, see you on the flip side.